Carly and I actually got a question from an editor of a Fast Pitch newsletter or type publication, and it's a common question that in the softball community is why do baseball pitchers break down so much faster? Why is a softball pitcher pretty much ready to go 5 hours after her start when a baseball pitcher needs 5 days? And more specifically, what are the things we can do to ensure durability during the in-season with the volume being so high for a competitive fast pitch windmill pitcher? What are the things that we need to do in the off-season to ensure that durability in season? And as example, the most extreme example I can give is a teammate of Cassie's in the College World Series last year threw 791 pitches during the game, so that's not even accounting for all her bullpen work, in a span of 6 days. Now that's probably going to be the most extreme example we need to prepare for or utilize. Everything's going to be below that for the girls that we're working with for the most part. And not only is that a high volume, but that's a high volume in the most stressful environment that a girl's ever going to have to endure. Okay, being on TV in the championship series. Okay, so question being, how do you improve a softball pitcher's durability? How do you ensure it? How do you prevent breakdown as best as possible? My answer, simply, sarcasm aside, is don't hurt them during the off season, which is it doesn't mean to be taken as being offensive to the softball community, but there's a lot of things that girls are doing and coaches are doing during the off season that are either are negligent or are insulting a pitcher's integrity for the in season. Things like too much long distance running, too much bullpen work, or too many pitching skill lessons in which the emphasis is maximum velocity development. They're pitching in competitive situations. I believe as an outsider it needs to be tailored toward more technical proficiency instead of max effort pitching. Okay, so this especially during the off season. The best thing a girl can do after a long competitive season, and also understand now, as a strength and conditioning specialist, you need to prepare for this, that a softball player, we used to think, only as like a decade ago, baseball and softball season used to be a spring and summer type sport. Now it's spring, summer, they have competitive fall ball, and now coaches are really trying to keep their players with them during the winter as well for winter team workouts. They're going all year round. It's not just a spring or summer sport anymore. It's a lot of specific volume. So I'm going to use this gas tank analogy to try to derive the importance of strength training in the off season and throughout the entire year, at least maintenance during the in-season for these types of athletes. Okay? The one thing that you and the skill coach or the athlete, the parent, has to agree upon, terms that you have to agree upon, is this clause here, is that athletes are always operating at a certain percentage of max effort. Okay? If you can agree on this, then this analogy works. And what that means is, I might not be able to use a softball analogy, but from the sports that other sports kind of make this more clear, is that if you're a golfer, okay, you're never swinging as hard as you possibly can. You always have something left in the tank for either later in the round, later in the tournament, when you get into a bad situation, when you really need to let one fly. The same thing applies for baseball pitchers, softball pitchers. Any situation, there's always a little bit more that you leave in the tank. If you can agree with this, that your pitchers as a softball coach, or if you're just talking to the athlete, you're never throwing absolutely as hard as you can every single pitch. It's fair to say, or easy to agree upon, that pitchers will break down pretty fast. Okay, so if you agree with this, then the analogy is going to work. Okay. Now, this is my own interpretation, and a lot of these are just kind of logical assumptions that I've made. Hopefully you can get your athletes and parents and coaches to agree with this, is that the number of successful attempts available and the percentage of max effort are inversely related. Okay? So what does this mean? It means the more times you have to dig into the gas tank, as deep into the gas tank as possible, put the pedal to the metal, okay, you have that number, and the number of successful attempts available are inversely related. There's only a few times in a game, in a golf round, if you use other sports, that you can really step on the gas, okay, all the way to the floor. Those are inversely related. You can't do it all the time. And again, if you agree with that clause, the rest of this is going to make sense. Right? Next part of this statement. Injury risk and percent max are directly related. The more times you try as hard as you possibly can, whatever that sporting action is, throwing a pitch, swinging a golf club, swinging a bat, injury risk goes up. Okay? It's fair to say, I think it's easy to agree upon, that if I take 150 swings at 50% effort or 75% effort, the chance of me injuring myself during my batting lesson is less than if I took 150 swings at 100% effort. Is that clear? All right. With numbers, I tend to confuse myself, but I hope that this analogy is still working. Okay. Moving on, sport actions. So in this example, pitching require a combination of strength, speed, and endurance. As a strength coach, I'm not married to strictly strength, but hopefully we're going to move on to show you how important strength training is. This collectively is what we're going to call the gas tank. Okay, these components right here, primarily for the most part, form the gas tank. Clear? Right? Every action requires these elements. Right? Now, an athlete with a small gas tank, quote unquote, has to work at a greater percentage of max. Okay? Two athletes, both who throw 50 miles an hour, okay, or can throw 50 miles an hour on the gun. You have an athlete with better capacity, you have an athlete with lesser capacity. That athlete with lesser capacity might have to stay around 95 to 98% effort. Don't get caught up in the numbers here. All we need to know is more or less. Okay, that athlete, to sustain 50 miles an hour over 7 innings, 6 or 7 innings, has to work at whatever, 95 to 98%. An athlete with a larger tank, okay, larger capacity, larger physical or performance reserves, she throws 50 miles an hour, but she's only working at 85 to 90. What did we just say? Okay, that number, that 85 to 90%, whatever the effort is, okay, in injury risk, she's less prone to injury, if you agreed with the statement previously. Okay, and okay, she's going to have a greater number of successful attempts at a higher percentage when she needs it, when she needs to dig deep later in the game, when she's tired, when the other team's tired, she has a little bit more. Okay, so when she needs to change speeds, and that sometimes she needs to bring her velocity up. Okay, maybe she sits at 50 miles an hour, but she can bring it up to 52. She still has that opportunity late in the game to get a critical out here or there. The girl with a smaller gas tank does not have that reserve. All right. I guess we can go to this now. No, we're going to go to this last, because I'm going to speak just quickly about that. Okay, so to build a bigger gas tank, we need strength, speed, and endurance. But why did I start this analogy off of defending the importance of strength training? Here's why. Okay. Strength, this is where when you're talking to an athlete or you're talking to a coach, you have to make sure you're on their terms and speaking in their language as much as possible, or at least in a way that they can understand it. Because we understand this stuff. But communicating it to the people who are important, the athletes and the coaches and the skill instructors, you have to get on their level, or at least make sure they understand it. Right? Strength itself is just the ability to apply force to an object, whether that's the ground, pushing away from the ground, okay, or ultimately into the ball. Got to apply force. Power and speed, okay, is the ability to apply that force quickly. Now, as another example, right, what's the difference between an athlete who can apply force and an athlete who can't apply force quickly? Think of like a big lineman, two big linemen, right? They're both super strong. Okay, one gets out of their stance rapidly. He can generate all that force really quickly and make his specific moves. The other athlete is still strong in the weight room. He can just crush weights, squat, bench, deadlift, cleans, but he can't apply it quickly on the field. This is the difference here. For sport performance, we need to apply that force quickly, rapidly, right? And then we need endurance. And what's another working definition of endurance is the ability to apply force quickly a certain number of times. For a pitcher, 70 times a game, maybe 100 times a game, 250 times in a day, 791 pitches in 6 days. Okay, the ability to do it multiple times. What's the common denominator in all of these definitions is the word force. Okay, how do we improve force? Strength training. That's pretty much what we're doing. Strength training is force development training. Right? It plays a role in all of these capacities. Okay? For a developing athlete, in which we're trying to bring their strength level up to a kind of a basal level. I talked about it last time with those numbers like 1.5 times their body weight for lower body lifts like squat or deadlift being an acceptable number. Nothing outstanding for strength sports such as powerlifting or weightlifting, but for a competitive field or court sport athlete, it's pretty good. Force plays a role in all of these components. So that has to be emphasized, that you improve strength, you improve force development, that strength, power, speed, and endurance all benefit. All right? But if you just work on endurance, if you just work on speed type exercises that concentrate on speed, you don't get the benefits of the capacity that underpins all of these. That's strength or force development training. All right? So if you agreed with all of this, the flow of this analogy, you can see how we can derive how important strength training is. It underpins all of these things, okay, that decrease your risk of injury and give you that reserve to dig deep later in the game, later in a tournament. And speaking of recovery, in between pitches, in between innings, in between games, from weekend to weekend, from month to month over the course of the season. All right. Building a better gas tank, so improving these capacities, again, which begin with strength. Okay, it determines or at least influences recovery ability, short and long. Why do I assume that? Okay, sport or exercise, whether it's a pitching lesson, whether it's a practice, whether it's a workout, is a stress. It's a stress to the body. It's low impact and it's short term. Okay, but it's a stress to the body that deserves a time period for recovery. You have to look at it, I think, as almost like short-term illness. Okay, your body goes through these stressful processes and changes that need a recovery time. You can't neglect the benefits of exercise, the health benefits here. Okay, working out and doing all these things is going to make it easier for the body to recover in between lessons, in between games, in between tournaments, week to week, and then month to month. Okay, systematic, progressive, strength and conditioning, exercise programming is going to improve the capacity to get better. At the least now, okay, going back to this gas tank analogy, if I now, okay, from 2013 to spring 2014, if I get an athlete to be able to reduce her relative, say, like energy expenditure or perceived exertion down from 90% every pitch to 80%, it's a lot better to recover from on a day-to-day basis when you're chronically using less of your gas tank. Is that clear? All right, so for a workout in our terms, if we go in on Monday and our workout is about 80% of max effort, all of our lifts are at about 80%, that's a lot easier to recover from than if we did it at 90. That's pretty much what I'm saying. So if you have a girl who can perform at peak level only using 80% of her gas tank, it's a lot easier day-to-day to recover from than if she's always having to step on the gas and work from 90 or above. Don't get caught up on these numbers. I don't know what these numbers are officially. It's just more or less. Okay? Less is better in this example. At best, okay, we improve stress resiliency, I don't know if that's spelled right, through exercise, and we get an improved autonomic nervous system balance. This is the technical stuff that I don't want to get into. But what we're looking to do is, through exercise, we can improve the athlete's ability to recover by improving certain systems of the body, aerobic system, eliciting, parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system balance, that determine what's going on in the body when they're not playing, when they're not competing, when they're not working out. Okay, improving the systems that recover and recharge the body. Okay.